What happens when a member of the public gets the chance to ask Andy Burnham the question politicians usually try to avoid? In the middle of Britain's ongoing small boats controversy, one simple question put immigration and border security directly in the spotlight, and Burnham's response has sparked a much wider debate about whether Labour's plan is actually working. Burnham has now been in the hot seat for several weeks, and while the government continues to insist that progress is being made, the Channel crossings remain one of the biggest political issues facing Britain. According to the figures discussed in the source material, more than 2,000 people had crossed the Channel since Burnham took office, while one particularly large boat was reported to have carried around 230 people in a single crossing. For critics, images like that raise an obvious question. If the government says its strategy is working, why are these crossings still happening on such a large scale? And that is exactly what one member of the public wanted to know. While Burnham was out meeting people, he was approached and asked directly whether he had any plans to deal with immigration, and more specifically, how the government intended to stop the boats. Rather than getting a detailed answer at that moment, the discussion moved toward an interview Burnham had given to GB News, where he had been questioned about the same issue, and that interview is where things became much more interesting. Burnham acknowledged that the sight of a boat carrying 230 people across the channel would concern the public. He argued that criminal gangs were changing their tactics, but insisted that the government would change its tactics too. He said the government would be relentless in pursuing the gangs responsible for organizing the crossings, and pointed to increased law enforcement activity on the French side of the channel. Burnham also argued that crossings had fallen compared with the previous year and said immigration was down as well, but critics immediately challenged that argument. The response was essentially this: if crossings are falling across the channel, how much of that reduction can actually be credited to Labour's policies, and how much reflects a wider European trend? That distinction matters because simply pointing to lower numbers does not automatically prove that one particular government policy caused the reduction. And there was another important moment in the interview when asked about stopping small boats entirely. Burnham was reluctant to make a firm prediction based on a specific timeline. Instead, he promised a relentless focus on the issue and said further measures were coming. For supporters, that could be seen as a realistic approach. For critics, it raises a different question. If the government is confident that its plan is working, why not make a stronger commitment about when the crossings will actually end? The disagreement also exposes a wider problem inside Labour's messaging. Different Labour politicians have faced different questions about immigration, border security, and the channel crossings, and critics argue that the public is receiving mixed messages about exactly what the government's ultimate objective is. Is the priority to reduce crossings? Is it to dismantle the criminal gangs? Is it to increase cooperation with France? Or is the government ultimately promising to eliminate the crossings altogether? Those are not necessarily the same thing, and while the political arguments continue, the channel remains the center of attention. The government says it is changing its approach and working with France to tackle the gangs. Critics say that the continued arrival of large boats shows there is still a long way to go. The member of the public who approached Burnham may not have received the dramatic confrontation some people were expecting, but the question itself captured the frustration surrounding the issue, because ultimately, voters want to know one thing: what is the plan and will it actually work? Until the government can provide a convincing answer, the small boats crisis is likely to remain one of the biggest political battles in Britain. So what do you think? Is Labour's strategy actually working, or are the latest channel crossings